Hey everybody, movie review next door here, and if I seem a bit quieter than usual, it's because I'm sleeping in the other room, and I've been staying up to fix my sleep schedule actually. So, I'm not going to be talking super loud in this one, but I'm back, and I'm here to review the next film of the James Bond series, On Her Majesty's Secret Service from 1969. This film was directed by Peter Hunt, and it stars George Lazenby, Diana Rigg, Telly Savalas, Gabrielle Ferzetti, and Ilsa Stepat. Now this film, James Bond tracks his arch-nemesis Ernst Stavro Blofeld to a mountaintop retreat where he is training an army of beautiful, lethal women. Along the way, Bond falls for Italian Contessa Tracy Draco and marries her in order to get closer to Blofeld. That's wrong actually. It's Tracy Di Vincenzo. Teresa Di Vincenzo. And he does not marry her in order to get closer to Blofeld. He gets closer to Blofeld and then marries her. Whatever. But, what did I think of this film? Again, I really liked it. I didn't change my rating this time. It's still a 9 out of 10. I still think this is an underappreciated Bond film. And I think that with a few changes, it could also be a 10 out of 10. But yeah, I don't hate George Lazenby as much as so many people do. I do still think he's one of the weaker Bonds, don't get me wrong. But that's because so many of the Bonds are so much better than him. And I still think Daniel Craig is the weakest. I'll have to watch his movies again. Give me a chance. I'll have to watch... I haven't seen most of his movies, so... Just going off of Casino Royale. But I don't mind George Lazenby in this film. But yeah, I'll just go ahead and get to the cast. George Lazenby, he's alright as James Bond. He's not amazing, he's not terrible. He has his moments where he does a pretty good job, and I'll get to those. Especially in the spoiler section, because there is a spoiler section for this one. But yeah, I just think that his inexperience does show in quite a few scenes, and I do think that they could have picked a different actor. But yeah, for what they had to work with, he does fine. For what he had to work with, for what they had to work with him, since he was an inexperienced actor. Diana Rigg as Contessa Di Vincenzo, Teresa Di Vincenzo. That's her name. I think she is the best Bond girl so far, right above Domino, because I really liked Domino. I think she has the most depth of a Bond girl so far, mostly because they tried to do the whole Bond's one true love thing here, which I'm not mad about it here because I actually buy it, unlike Madeline Swan or Ava Green's character, Vesper Lind, I think. I didn't buy it in Casino Royale because it all felt sudden and I didn't really care about her character. I know a lot of people think she's like the best Bond girl or some shit, but whatever. I buy the relationship between Bond and Tracy, and I really can understand why the future films talk about this. Like, they bring up the whole Bond's wife thing, and it really tears him up inside because he really thought that he was going to settle down with a woman, which, yeah, it explains exactly why no woman can be the definitive one that James Bond is with, because they're always going to be in danger. And also Telly Savalas as Blofeld, I think he does a good job. I think if given a bit more screen time, he could have been the definitive Blofeld, because I really do like Telly Savalas when he's doing good guys or bad guys. Doesn't really matter. I still really like him. I'll always remember him from one of the best episodes of Twilight Zone, Talking Doll, the one with Talking Tina, where he plays the evil father character, or evil stepfather. But yeah, I think he did a good job. Gabriel Ferzetti as Draco. He is Tracy's father. He does a good job. And Elsa Steppat as Irma Bunt. She is the henchman of Blofeld in this film. I think she's all right. She has her moments, but she's for the most part all right. The title song, which is Our Majesty Secret Service, but it is an instrumental by I always blank on his name. John Barry. Honor Majesty's Secret Service by John Barry. It's a really good title sequence song, and I'm glad that a lot of the film's score was wrapped around it. There's also the vocal song We've Got All the Time in the World by Louis Armstrong. That is nice. I like it. I've never been the biggest Louis Armstrong fan, so his whole scratchy voice thing doesn't really work for me, but it's still a well-made song. It's still pretty during the sequence they use it. But yeah, I think this film has a lot of things going for it, especially the fact that it tries to do something vastly different from the Sean Connery films. And I don't think a lot of people really gave it enough credit for that, where quite a bit of the film is dedicated to this romance, and I think it's a nice one. I will say it does spread out the romance, so you get like the first 30 minutes, no, in the first 20 minutes you have the romance stuff, first 20-30 you have the romance stuff, and then for an entire hour and like 10 minutes you get like none of it, and then Teresa comes back into the story. But I don't think that's a terrible thing. I just think that the film couldn't really balance him being undercover with, dating her or wooing her, which that wouldn't make much sense. I mean, it's not a complaint, but I found their relationship to be very touching, very sweet. Also, the spying stuff I think was fun in the film. Yes, it can't be as big as You Only Live Twice. You could see that in the action set pieces. They aren't nearly as bombastic as You Only Live Twice, which I thought the action set pieces in You Only Live Twice were easily the best of Sean Connery's, tenure as Bond. Here, it's not that they're like super scaled down. It's about what you come to expect with these types of movies that came out around this point in time. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying they work. They work. One thing I will mention, the running time of this film is 2 hours and 22 minutes, which I did kind of feel it. I will say that is one of my issues with the film, because at first I was like, okay, maybe it's a slow build thing, the payoff will be worth it. It kind of is, but 2 hours and 22 minutes, that is quite long. Even with Thunderball, the ending I think made up for that more, because it was a quite long action sequence underwater that it was building up to, and Thunderball had a lot of things happening in it, like action-wise, throughout the film. thus why I like it so much more than Goldfinger, where Goldfinger spaced things out so much that I legitimately got bored. And I thought that the film was terribly paced, really, especially in the second half. With this film, it kind of has a similar issue to Goldfinger. Sorry about that. It kind of has a similar issue to Goldfinger where the action isn't... It's not spaced out enough. The action happens in really the first 30 minutes and then the last 40 or 50, because a long stretch of the film is in Blofeld's hideout, or his medical center, which is being used as a cover for his mind controlling virus thing, it's a pretty good setup for it's a pretty good villain plan. But a good hour, I think, is spent in the institute, and I'm like, maybe that should have been cut down a bit, because I didn't hate that stretch of the film. I just thought that it could have been spaced out better, it could have been paced better. I think things could have been done to make it not get boring at the parts that it did. And yeah, that's my main issue with the film. Another issue I have with the film would be the editing. There are times where the editing is horrific. There's a fight between Bond and a couple of Draco's goons, Teresa's father's goons, and it's cutting so close and so fast that I can't tell what's happening. And I know that George Lazenby can do the fights. I know that they can't be cutting around him doing the fights, because in literally the first scene of the film, he does a pretty well done fight, and there's wide shots of it. So I don't really see what the issue was there. And this editor was John Glenn, who would go on to direct License to Kill, Octopussy, For Your Eyes Only, which has been my favorite for a while, A View to a Kill, and The Living Daylights, which have some really great action sequences. So I don't really understand what happened with the editing here. There's a bit where Blofeld says, now, Bond, and it feels really jaggedly cut. It's like, now, Bond. And I don't know what happened with the editing here, but there are some times where it's really bad, and it cuts a lot during action sequences at times. But other than that, I think this is a pretty well-made Bond film. I do really like it. It is a gorgeous film. I'll have to... Michael Reed, the cinematographer, you did a fantastic job. I don't even know if he's still alive, but if he's still alive or his family sees this, whatever. He did a fantastic job. He's very talented. I don't know if I'd say this is the prettiest of the Bond films so far. I don't know, because a lot of them look really damn nice, even before they got to the widescreen. But yeah, I think this is a gorgeous looking film. The score from John Barry, it varies. The parts where they're using We've Got All the Time in the World as the sound font, where it's like variations on that song, I wasn't a big fan of, and I thought it was kind of like a mood killer a lot of the time. But whenever they were doing the On Her Majesty's Secret Service sound font or variations thing, I think it worked very well. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get to the pros and cons and then get to the spoiler. Well, spoiler alert. And it's a big one. It's at literally the very end. So, pros. George Lazenby is not as bad as people said he was. Diana Rigg does a really good job as the Bond girl. Don, bleh, I almost said Donald Pleasance. Telly Savalas does a really good job as Blofeld. The film looks gorgeous. The film's set design is, again, amazing. Ken Adam is very talented. Sorry, I keep blanking. I'm having issues. The score from John Barry has its ups and downs, but overall I like it. The action, when it's there, is pretty well done. I like the multiple ski chases. That was nice to see the first ski chases of Bond, because in the future you'll get more ski chases. And they are very impressive, especially how they did the back projection. It looks synced up for the most part. There's a bobsled chase, which was cool. That'll again get reprised in For Your Eyes Only, I think. I think both of those are in For Your Eyes Only. The shootout on Piz Gloria is still pretty fun. But yeah, again, I think the romance was very well done. And as for cons, I think that, of course, the 2 hour and 22 minute running time, which is the longest so far sequentially, or in chronological order, it is the longest since Thunderball, being 2 hours and 10 minutes. This one was 2 hours and 22. It should have been cut down a bit. There are quite a few sequences that I think go on for too long. There's a scene where Bond and Tracy are they're skiing down a mountain as an avalanche is heading to them, and it takes like about a minute to get through the avalanche scene, and it's like, what? Why are they still focusing on this? There are quite a few shots that I think linger a bit too long, and I think could have been cut better to tighten up the pacing. And again, the editing is pretty choppy in this. I didn't have much of an issue with the editing in Thunderball and You Only Live Twice, so I don't really understand what happened there. But yeah, I'm gonna get to the spoiler now. So spoilers for the ending. Major spoiler. After Bond takes care of Blofeld, he gets pinned in the tree branch or whatever, Bond and Tracy get married. Moneypenny starts crying, and then they drive off. And then as they are stopped on the side of the road, Irma Bunt and Blofeld drive by the car and shoot Tracy in the head. And Bond basically goes back in, and there's a police officer that comes by, and the police officer looks in, and Bond is like, no, it's quite alright, she's just having a rest. We're on our honeymoon. We've got all the time in the world. And then he starts crying, and then cut to credits. This ending, it breaks my fucking heart every time I see the movie. It really does. It's effective. It's not cheap manipulation, which is what most movies nowadays do, where they kill off main characters at the end of a series or at the end of a film. Most of the time it feels very cheap. It feels unearned. It feels lazy. Here it's earned because you legitimately get the feeling that James Bond can never be happy. And that's part of it, that he can never be happy. He can never have a woman to himself. And there will always be the looming threat of Spectre, Blofeld, or other villains killing any woman that he, actually falls for, which explains why he chooses to just sleep with women and choose to not really have feelings for them, So many people think that it's rooted in some sort of sexism thing. It's not. He's not chauvinistic. He's not sexist. He's not misogynistic. And I really wish more people wouldn't say stupid shit like that. I understand it's just my opinion. I think people need to grow a fucking backbone and stop bitching online about how sexist, misogynistic, and chauvinistic Bond is. He doesn't hate women. And he's had plenty of sidekicks and will have plenty of sidekicks, or Bond girls, who can fend for themselves. So, shut up. But yeah, I think this ending is heartbreaking, but I think the ending works for this film, and I'm pretty sure it's the ending of the book, and this film was trying to be very faithful to the book. So, I do think it works, and I do think this is a really damn good Bond film. So, final thoughts. I think it's a damn good Bond film. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the review. If you like it, comment, whatever, ring the bell, subscribe, and movie reviewer next door out.